Get away, B. Taylor Swift released a new music video with Taylor Lautner and his wife, Taylor. It's a whole Taylor trio. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I missed this week? Oh, yeah, we had another week of LCS. Week 4, to be specific, and only 2 weeks left until playoffs come. So without further ado, let's kick off the pit. I'm going to slightly mix up how things look this week simply because we only have 6 games remaining. People's remaining schedules are incredibly important. So I'm going to have the standings permanently over here and then whatever team schedule I'm talking about down below. And as always, there's a little picture up here.
My cousin's like Boogie. Life is amazing. It is what it should be. Been here for...
You're done. No, like, you're done. Like, season's over. There's no coming back. I'm not going to waste any time talking about this team or anything else because it would just be dogpiling onto an already negative thing. So it's like, see you next year. I'll continue to repeat the cycle next week as well. But yeah, nothing to say here.
Money records, the Army, the Navy. It ran me 10,000. I threw it like Brady.
Somehow I missed Team Liquid while filming all these, realizing this literally like as I'm editing all this. How could I forget to talk about the team that had like the biggest storyline of the week with APA coming in, a North American mid laner who was honestly pretty good in Academy from what we heard, or Challenger now, and people were hyping him up when he came in, and you know what, he delivered. Now granted, it was against 2 of the weaker teams, relatively speaking, in the LCS, including my own 100 Thieves but he was good. He was deathless, I think, which is pretty damn good. It's like, oh, once again, a North American player comes in and plays well. Now, I think it was somebody did an interview with Degon and said that the 4 best LCS mids are Koreans. Like, cool, whatever. We have 4 pretty good North American mid laners now that honestly can play against some of these top Korean talents and honestly continue to improve. Palafox, Jojopyun, APA, and Insanity as well. Like that, I'm happy with where the state of North American mid laners are at the moment, which is like really nice to say in a world where we just haven't seen NA mids in a long time. That's not saying that they're going to be the best in the league yet. The best mid is Jojopyun. I don't care what anybody says, but it's like, it feels so good for Team Liquid. If they can continue to run up the standings as APA comes in and plays well, great. But like this week is going to be up pretty much actually the same test as this past week, but I don't know. We'll see how they do. I'm optimistic.
Got no keys, tell them I told no stars, please. Soon as I you can go, please. Got M's in the bank.
Really quick, if you like this weekly series, if you like any of my content, be sure to subscribe and drop a like and comment down below. I much appreciate it. If you're a Dignitas fan, you're pretty happy with this week, or if you're literally anybody else and I told you that you lost games to EG and Cloud9, but you beat FlyQuest, I think you're happy with that, all things considered, especially for a team that's like middle of the pack. So for Dig, overall pretty good. And like the best part about that is like when you look at their remaining schedule now they no longer have C9 or EG to worry about. So they, as long as they are performing at that middle of the pack level, they will assumedly win the majority of their games going in, barring like Golden Guardians, TL. Everybody else below them, you assume it's going to be good. But then again, you're still at risk of missing playoffs given your early pacing of the season. You've been playing well, but there's not much separation between the middle of the pack, barring like the 2 games at the very bottom. And even as we mentioned, FlyQuest can go on a run. So this next week, TSM, NRG, Immortals. You have to beat Immortals. That's the given every single time. TSM, NRG, those are winnable games. Like you can take those and really put yourself above the pack and like pretty much lock yourself into playoffs this week. It's just a matter of whether they actually do it or not. Somebody opened a can up top, which threw me for a loop. It's just a matter of whether you do it or not. Jensen and Santorin seem to be playing well. Rich is entertaining as always. Tomo is once again just playing well. He's pretty good for a rookie and for a young player and is developing pretty well. Diamond continues to be like the question mark of the roster for most people, but overall, I mean, you can't really complain with how they're doing and how the results are. For a roster that nobody really expected to make any moves this split, them being in contention and being competitive against some of the better teams, it's pretty damn good. So, hey, all power to them. Cloud9 had another 2-1 week. Overall, not looking too bad, not looking like clear, like runaway, gonna win the split form. But then again, the one time that they played a legitimate opponent in Evil Geniuses, then they, you know, they kind of stomped them. And once again, this week, they lose to Golden Guardian. So it's like you have these moments for C9 where they just seem to just But in a best of 5, like am I really sitting here worried about Golden Guardians beating Cloud9 in a best of 5 when they have not been able to do so all year? No, absolutely not. I think C9 is going to be perfectly fine and literally nothing changes. So it is what it is. The only hope, at least in my mind, is their rematch this Friday against Evil Geniuses. If EG can finally put all the pieces together against Cloud9 and actually look good and not just get stomped like they did the last time, then maybe, just maybe, we'll actually have a competitive season finale of the LCS and teams will continue to ramp up. And in terms of like a best of 5, there's no reason whatsoever to doubt Cloud9. So they're literally just playing around right now and doing whatever. Quick note though on C9, they took over the broadcast this week pretty heavily in terms of Sven doing interviews, like Sven actually like being on the cast, and then the C9 crew going on the desk itself, or like basically taking over for the entire lounge. There's not many teams that can do this, if we're being completely honest, because not many teams have the personalities to make this work, like Fudge, like Blabber, and Sven being an incredible host, which by the way, Sven does not pursue broadcast as a career after this. He's doing something wrong. I hope his agent is really telling him that, yeah, this is right up your alley and you need to, because that was great. It was so much fun to watch, and I hope more teams do that. 100 Thieves already has like their own podcast style thing, so they would blend in well for this. For 100 Thieves, as always, I do TFC each week, 15 full minutes, or I think 11 this week on them, and I got the chance to talk to Nuke Duck, and I'll add part of that in here.
So I think we can easily beat like EG. I think C9, they're like one level above EG definitely, and they're very strong. So C9, that'll be like, you know, that's the final boss of LCS, I would say. But I think our team, like even at the moment, are strong enough to take down EG and the other teams. So yeah, I think we've been progressing well, and the team is like a good atmosphere. So, and we have everyone here now. We are not like coaching with Kane on Discord and me in person, and like Quid is now more comfortable. So yeah, I feel like everything's coming together nicely, and yeah, I think we can.
While this was a week that most people expected, 1 and 2, beating FlyQuest, losing to the teams technically above them, I personally was hoping for more, and we need to see them go 2-1 this week with the schedule. It's not going to be easy for them, so they really got to kick it into gear if they want to stand a chance of getting upper bracketed in this playoffs. I'm not sure what order these videos are going to come out in, and I know the sound quality is going to be a little bit different as I'm now inside versus outside. Sorry, it started to rain, so if you randomly see it switching up between indoor and outdoor, that's why. But this part is about FlyQuest, and much like this mirror here, it's a facade. Is this really not going to work? It's not working. This is a TV as well. It just looks like a mirror that kind of shoots back at you, but go figure, it didn't work. Neither is FlyQuest right now. 0-3 again. After going 3-0 last week and making fans feel like, yeah, they actually stand a chance. And it's like, ugh. Their schedule is daunting. For context, they have to win their first game against NRG to stand a chance at making playoffs, because otherwise they will be 3 games behind the pace of catching up to everybody else to try and secure that lower bracket seed. But on top of that, you still have games upcoming against the title contenders. So it's like, this is like literally Wednesday is make or break for this roster. And honestly, if you lose to NRG, like I'm expecting this to be full NFL, like coaches fired, some players swapped out. Like you gotta do something. You can't just let this roster limp into the off season. There's no way. Like if I'm putting on like general manager David hat here, like at that point I'm prepping for next year. Are there any players on your academy team that you see yourself moving up? If not, one, that's an indicative sign of what are you doing with your academy team if you have no players on the team that you would even want to try out in the LCS to just give them a chance, even if you're putting them into, sure, not the best scenario. Look, APA slots into a TL roster that's slumping, and all of a sudden he performs well, and Sanity's playing well. Why would you not give these people a chance and just make sure that like you understand they're being given a shot? Let them play a style that works for them and go from there. I'm really talking about this FlyQuest roster like they're done, but like I don't know, I just want to see proper management down the stretch. If this roster does collapse, handle it properly from a front office point of view. If they make a run, they make a run, great, but I'm not counting on it.
We are always running for the thrill of it.
EG is a weird one where you want to buy in to this team and say, yeah, they're the real deal. They can go all the way because they're taking care of business against smaller teams or lower teams, barring NRG, who had one of their hot weeks. So it is what it is with them. Sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. So it's just a matter of whether you catch them on the wrong day or not. But they're tied for first and 1 game clear of Golden Guardians in terms of securing a first round bye for playoffs and just being that 1 best-of-5 series away from getting to Worlds. But let's be honest, where the quality and caliber of this team is at right now, you're assuming they're going to Worlds. It's now a question of, can they win the split? Where is this next gear that you can kick into for playoffs to try and beat Cloud9? Because they are the front runners regardless of what these standings tell you. Over the last few years, it seems like as we go into playoffs, teams kind of collapsed towards the end and one person just remained standing and like didn't trip the entire time, which by all means could happen again this year. But like, I want to see this leveling up. I want to see this gameplay evolve and continue to grow because I love players like Revenge. I love seeing Jojo Pune playing well in an MVP form. I love seeing Unforgiven prove himself as one of the better ADCs in the league, and I actually got the chance to sit down and talk to him and pick his brain on a few random topics. Look, ultimately it all comes down to Friday. Can they be competitive against Cloud9? If they get stomped by C9 again, you pretty much have lost hype for EG. They'll go to Worlds, but like, you're not sitting here being like, yeah, they can contend against C9 in playoffs. It's like, no, they weren't competitive in either of their 2 games. They really need to step up and make this happen. It is starting to rain, so I need to hurry. Like, if you guys were to qualify for LCS finals, this would be your first time playing in front of an arena crowd, right? Like, not just like a studio setting.
Yeah, in Europe I was at 1 game, like it was such a close game against Rogue. I think it was summer. Like, it was so close, like it was so many unlucky things that happened. Like, I remember like Niski was like missing his Silas E like on someone. If he lands it, we get Elder, win the game. Like, it was so many like unlucky mistakes, and we lost the last game, like game 5 in the against Rogue. It was so sad. If we won that, I think we would have played like semi-final or something in front of the crowd.
You would have played that Saturday before finals to, I think it was face off against G2 in the finals. So you got a pretty good chance realistically at getting there this year. You guys look on par with Cloud9 for being one of the top teams in the league. Does the prospect of playing in front of that full arena excite you? Like, what does that do in terms of like your excitement going into postseason and everything else?
I mean, I didn't really think about it that much, like playing in front of a crowd, but that's something like last year, my goal was to play in front of a crowd at one point. I remember like when I lost the best of 5 against Rogue and like Fnatic, I was actually really, really sad because I really wanted to play in front of a crowd, especially because it was in Sweden. And it was so close. And now I feel like I have a really good chance of playing like in front of a crowd. I really want to play in front of a crowd, and I think surely there is no way we don't make it, but you never know.
Just to know what's in front of me.
I would ask how many of you had TSM going 3-0 this week on your bingo card. I'm sure more would than you would think, given that Insanity was back in the roster. They finally decided, yeah, we're probably just going to start Insanity for the entire split, and it is what it is. And what do you know? They 3-0. Now, granted, it's Immortals, it's NRG, and a notable win against Golden Guardians. I don't want to diminish that, but like, IMT is a free win at this point for literally everybody. And NRG is one of those teams where it's like, they can beat great teams, lose against like bad teams. Like, it's so hard to judge. So for TSM, it's like, okay, are they the real deal? Is this going to be like an incredible farewell run for Wild Turtle, for Hanser, for the TSM org as they dip out after this and claim a spot for Worlds? Maybe? I don't know. The bottom line for them is they are 3 games clear of FlyQuest, who is the next up to like kind of knock them out of playoffs. I don't really see a world where TSM misses playoffs at this point, being honest. They look too good. So they're at like the higher level of this clump of teams towards the middle/bottom. But them securing upper bracket would be a great start for their playoffs. They're notably only 1 game clear of that hurdle, so they still really need to be careful down the line and not fumble the bag here. But they're sitting pretty, and Insanity clearly brings just a level of cohesion to this roster that they don't have otherwise. He enables Boogie very well, and quite frankly, it's really nice to see him in the LCS. I'll just keep saying that. This week, they play against Dignitas, C9, and 100 Thieves. That match against 100 Thieves being arguably the most important out of all of them. Dig, sure, but like, you don't want to lose that game versus 100 Thieves, go 0-2 against them, so not have a tiebreaker in your favor in summer, and just be in a really iffy spot. So like that is like the single most important game for them probably, at least this upcoming week. You can lose to the rest, including C9. Like I'm not expecting them to beat C9.
Tell them I told no starch, please. Soon as I you can go.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Champions queue and players in North America just letting it die whenever this was supposed to be your solution to the solo queue problems that exist with like 60 ping in LA. Really? Whatever. I'm not wasting any more time on this crap. I'm not giving benefit of the doubt to players when it comes to like any of these like regional element complaints. Like if you want to complain about things within the LCS, fine, you do you. But like complaints on like the actual game ping, stuff like that, you've now entirely lost liberty to say anything. It just is what it is. For those of you that didn't tune in last week and don't know, I'm a Golden Guardians hater. Not because I don't believe that they're not a decent team at this point. I do believe that, and I do believe that they're probably going to be going to Worlds, but it's just in their best interest if I keep hating as much as humanly possible, because you don't want me to swap up, and I don't want a Narrow getting pissed at me and coming after me for swapping up my stance on it, and then they somehow miss Worlds, and I'm not dealing with it. So, weird week for them, where they beat Cloud9 in this amazing matchup that's like, yes, they finally overcame this hurdle. They beat FlyQuest, which nowadays isn't much of an accomplishment, but it's still something, all things considered. And then they lose to TSM? If you're a Golden Guardians fan, and putting my own bias aside, like the question you have to be asking yourself is, can you win the split with this roster? And taking a game off of C9 kind of goes a long way to doing that. But you gotta level it up further from here. You're not gonna beat Cloud9 in their current form. At least not in a best of 5. But look, the important part for Golden Guardians is that they control their own fate from here on out. All they have to do is win out, and they are guaranteed that first round bye into playoffs. Let's actually use this moment to give a quick reminder to everybody as to what the playoff format actually is. The top 2 teams get a bye and only have to win a single round robin, and you are guaranteed top 3 in playoffs, which guarantees your spot to Worlds. So securing that first and second seed is absolutely massive. Only 2 teams miss out, but notably seeds 3 through 6 get upper bracket still. You get that chance at double elimination. But for Golden Guardians, you're looking at this and saying, yeah, we play against EG upcoming. All you have to do is win that. EG and Cloud9 play each other on Friday. This is a very doable path. You just have to take care of the games that you're supposed to take care of. Can they do that? I'm actually going to say yeah. I legitimately believe in Cloud9, and Golden Guardians to do this, despite being a hater. So an arrow, you know what? If it happens, it happens. Sorry. NRG has to be like the single most frustrating team to be a fan of, which notably Andy Miller, who's the owner of NRG, tweeted out exactly this. And it's like, dude, welcome to the LCS given this current roster or roster iteration that you've got, because just Contracts and Dokla just have those moments where they can be really streaky. Somehow this week they win games against Team Liquid, notably with Harry, not with APA, and EG. But then you lose to TSM. It's like the most NRG thing ever, where like just they win games against top teams, they lose games against bottom teams, and it's like, what? Like the CLG like legacy follows them, at least for this iteration of the roster. They're now in playoff playoff contention. 2 games clear of FlyQuest, this upcoming week being arguably their most important that they're probably going to have all split. Their first game is against FlyQuest. If they win against FlyQuest and 100 Thieves wins their game on Thursday, that means that there's a 3-game gap between FlyQuest and literally that next tier up, which is going to be incredibly important for a team like NRG to try and just build as much room as possible, knowing that you are probably going to drop games down the stretch. And you can't rely, even though TL has a very tough schedule, you cannot, or sorry, FlyQuest has a very tough schedule, you cannot rely on them losing out. You want to try and take care of this business yourself.
Just keep going up.
So I am confusion.
I had a separate topic planned for I Am Confusion, but I think I now have to pivot because this is literally ongoing, like as I'm recording this, of the LCS commissioner role appearing on like a Google job search thing, which it doesn't look like that's the actual thing. It's one of those where like they're clearly going to hire an internal candidate, and you have to put something out in the public just in case they want to apply. Like I forget what the rules and restrictions are on it, but nevertheless, like this isn't like a real